You're in the middle of a conversation and everything seems fine. People are laughing. The energy is good. But somewhere inside you, a quieter part of your mind is watching, observing the room, reading the silences between words, noticing the slight shift in someone's tone that nobody else seemed to catch. And when you get home later, when the door closes and it's just you sit with all of it. You replay moments. You question your own reactions. You wonder if you said too much or not enough, or if any of it even meant what you thought it meant. Most people would call that overthinking. They'd tell you to just relax, to stop being in your head. But what if they're wrong? What if what you've been calling a flaw is actually something much rarer and much more valuable than you've ever been told? There's actually a reason your mind works the way it does. And it has nothing to do with anxiety or insecurity or being too sensitive. It has everything to do with self-awareness, a quality that, as it turns out, most people fundamentally lack, and almost nobody recognizes when they have it. These are 9 signs that you carry more of it than you think. You apologize and actually mean it. Not the reflexive kind, not the sorry people mumble to end an awkward moment. When you apologize, you've already spent time sitting with what happened. You've turned it over. You've felt the specific weight of it. That's not weakness. That's the rarest form of emotional honesty. The kind that while you hold your own behavior up to the light and look at it without flinching. Most people protect their ego at all costs. You protect the relationship instead. You find it genuinely difficult to do things that conflict with your values. Not because you're rigid, not because you can't adapt, but because there's a deep internal compass in you that registers misalignment almost physically, like a low-grade discomfort that you can't quite ignore. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. It's the friction that happens when your actions and your beliefs don't match. The difference is that highly self-aware people feel that friction immediately, clearly, and can't simply override it the way others do. For you, being out of integrity doesn't feel like a minor inconvenience. It feels like something's wrong. Because for you, it is. You notice your own moods shifting before you can explain why. You'll be mid-sentence and realize, quietly, without drama, that something has changed in how you feel. A flatness, a restlessness, a weight you can't name yet. And instead of pushing through or distracting yourself, you find yourself wondering, what is this? Where did it come from? This kind of internal attunement is not common. Most people experience emotions the way weather happens to them. Suddenly, overwhelmingly, without warning. You track the clouds forming hours before the rain. You hold yourself to a standard that is almost exhausting to maintain. And not because someone told you to, not because you're afraid of being judged, but because somewhere deep down, you genuinely care about being good, about doing things right, about the gap between who you are and who you know you could be. That gap bothers you in a way that's hard to explain to people who feel it. The truth is, that gap is your conscience speaking with unusual volume. It means your self-awareness is high enough to see yourself honestly, including the parts that still need work. That's not perfectionism. That's integrity in the making. You process experiences slowly and deeply. Long after something has passed, a conversation, a decision, a relationship, you're still turning it over, still finding new angles, still extracting meaning from things most people have long forgotten. There's neuroscience behind this. The default mode network, a system in the brain that activates during rest and inward reflection, is significantly more active in people who score high in self-awareness. Your mind doesn't stop working when the moment ends. It keeps going. It's looking for understanding, not because it can't let go, but because it refuses to waste an experience. You are deeply uncomfortable with performance, with pretending to be something you're not just fit the room. When you sense inauthenticity in yourself, in others, in the way a social situation is requiring you to perform, you feel it as a specific kind of fatigue. Not shyness, not social anxiety. Something more precise than that, a sense of this isn't real, and I can't fully pretend it is. Self-aware people crave genuine connection, not social theater. And because they know the difference intimately, the theater exhausts them in a way it simply doesn't exhaust those who've never noticed it. You can hold 2 contradictory feelings at the same time without needing to resolve them immediately. You can miss someone and know they weren't good for you. You can feel proud and insecure in the same breath. You can want something desperately and simultaneously question whether you should. Most people find this kind of internal complexity destabilizing. They rush to resolve it, to pick a lane. But you've learned, maybe not comfortably but genuinely, to sit inside the contradiction and let it exist. Psychologists call this ambivalence tolerance, and it's one of the highest markers of emotional maturity. You don't always need the answer. You can live inside the question. You often know, even before you speak, that you might not be understood. There's a pause that happens in you before you share something real. A quick internal calculation, not of worth, but of translation. Will this land the way it needs to? Will the other person have the context to receive it? That pause isn't hesitation born from fear. It's the awareness that your interior life is complex enough that bridging it to another person requires care. People who lack self-awareness never pause like this. They speak and assume the world will receive them exactly. You know better. And that knowing, as lonely as it sometimes feels, is a form of deep perceptiveness that most people develop slowly, if at all. And the last one, the one that might hit the hardest, You have spent significant parts of your life wondering if something is wrong with you, why you feel things so deeply, why you can't just move on, why you seem to need more time, more space, more silence than others, why the world sometimes feels like it was designed for a different kind of person. You've probably been told in various ways that you're too much, or not enough, too serious, too sensitive, too inside your own head. But here is what nobody told you. Self-awareness is one of the rarest psychological traits a person can have. Research consistently places it in a small minority of the population. It means you have developed an inner observer, a part of your mind that watches, reflects, and questions that most people never cultivate at all. Not because they're incapable, but because it's uncomfortable. Because truly seeing yourself, your patterns, your contradictions, your blind spots, requires a kind of courage most people quietly choose to avoid. You didn't avoid it, you walked into it, maybe without knowing, maybe without choosing it consciously. But you've been doing the inner work regardless. That's not a disorder, that's not a flaw, that's not something you need to medicate or meditate away. That is the architecture of a person who is genuinely awake to their own experience. The world rewards confidence over reflection, volume over depth, certainty over nuance, and so people like you, people who move slowly, feel fully, and question everything, can spend years mistaking their greatest strength for their heaviest burden. Maybe the problem was never how you were made. Maybe the problem was how you were taught to measure yourself. You were always measuring yourself against a standard built for people who aren't doing what you're doing, people who aren't watching as closely, feeling as deeply, living as honestly. That standard was never meant for you. And the quiet you feel right now, reading this, that small, still sense of recognition, that's not coincidence. That's you, understanding yourself, maybe just a little more clearly than you did before.